to come in. So that's when intros and stuff will be happening. We are live. Yes. Oh, the whole big screen change. Yes. Why am I getting a sound? Of course this doesn't happen until we're literally live.
Or, I don't know, for a moment you froze.
Oh, yeah, I think that was probably it going live. Let me check in OBS. Hello, everybody. Come on in. We're gonna give a couple seconds to let everybody get in. Please ignore what's happening in the bottom left. It's usually going to be KinnPorsche related, but right now, as we get everything up and going, we're going to kind of expose the process here for a little bit. But as per usual, can you see me? Can you hear me? I will introduce her in a second, but Jeanet, speak up. say hello so they can hear you.
Hi guys, how are you?
Sound and video's good? Yeah?
Yeah, sorry if my sound is bad. It's not her fault. We tried to do what we could with my bad sound.
Oh yeah, no, and you fixed it, really. I can't hear any ambient sounds whatever, and neither could the wife. All right, we can see, we can hear, so I'm going to scoot you guys over here. I can see the chat. I can see you guys. But Jeanet can't. She cannot see anything. She is blind. She's looking at her camera right now.
Yeah,
I will be the one who can see things. Yeah. So then let me put this behind that so that you're not looking at doubles of my face all the time. And all right, as we give people a chance to come in, welcome to Gaywatch, where we watch gay things. Eddie is here as per usual, but the very special guest that we have today to scream about KinnPorsche is Jeanet Henning. If you do not know her, you do now. We have similar but different channels. We dovetail quite a bit. And we're both watching KinnPorsche, and I was like, we have to do a stream where we scream about the end of the season and the season as a whole. So please, please, please welcome and go check out Jeanet Henning.
Yeah, thank you. I screamed a little bit when I got your DM about the collab.
It really, oh good, because I was like, this might just be really annoying. She might be like, I don't do this.
Not at all.
I was really hoping, because it's such a perfect, like, I could not imagine a more perfect circumstance for a collaboration.
Yeah.
Just from the way that our channels are.
Yeah, it was either this or Word of Honor for me, because I think that we did more or less at the same time as well.
Yeah, I think we wound up doing that a bunch at the same time. I have purposefully not watched any of Jeanet's reactions to KinnPorsche because I asked her to do this stream with me a while back, and I did not want to know anything about how she was perceiving anything. I didn't want to know. I wanted to learn about it all today. So I have purposefully not watched her reactions. I think.
Yeah, and I've been trying my best not to say anything about my thoughts.
I
failed a couple of times, but anyway.
Right, yeah, we've been trying to keep things so vague. Okay, how long have we been going? Gonna peek out over here. Oh, wow, this is a personal best of concurrent viewers for me. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't hit triple digits before. Okay, holy crap. Well, so, what this stream is going to be, as we give just the last bit of stragglers time to come in, we're going to be screaming about KinnPorsche, because I feel like that's the only way you talk about KinnPorsche, is at very high volumes. And we're going to start with a little bit of expectations versus reality, and then we're actually going to go through the episodes in chunks. So in about 3 or 4 different, groups, we're going to talk about episodes as a whole, and kind of work through everything that we experienced, and we're going to obviously end on the finale because that would be the last episode. So finale chat is not until later, but as you can see from the little banner that's below Jeanet right now, we're not doing book spoilers because neither one of us has read the book, and even though there's a lot of differences, just in case something winds up being the same, A book spoiler could turn out to be a show spoiler by the time season 2 comes around, right? So we have no book spoilers, but it is, yes, show spoilers. It is show spoilers everywhere, including the finale. But since that's at the end, you have a whole big long time, if you haven't seen the finale yet, to beg out. We should be going for about 2 hours because poor Jeanet has only so much battery life in her laptop. But it's good. It's gonna be a good time. I have, as you can see, I have the title screen up, and that's because just in case there's any one particular moment that either we can't remember or wanted to bring up just a still image to specify, I can do that here. And I've got your chat going on here, so this is gonna be a good time.
She is gonna be managing everything. My life is in her hands.
Yes, Jeanet is totally blind, and me, on the other hand, I am just running the entire frickin' show, which is actually how I would prefer it. I would hate to invite a guest onto a stream and then be like, okay, you do everything, I'll sit here. All right, so now that we've been on for a few minutes,
I just want a quick caveat. South African internet is terrible. So if I lag, if I disappear for a second, it's not Brittany's fault. I will return. There might be panic involved.
Yeah, or if we noticed the last time when we did the test stream last week, after we've been on for a while, if her audio starts to get a little bit out of sync, that's probably her internet issue, and there's nothing we can really do about that. But hopefully that won't be an issue. It hasn't been so far. It's been going really well. Okay. So the first topic on this piece of paper that I wrote on 5 minutes ago, expectations versus reality. Because I feel like this show was so hyped and everybody had all these different ideas about what the show was going to be, from book fans to people who had no idea what they were getting into, which was both of us. I really wanted to take a time at the top to talk about what we were expecting, and then like what we got and what was the same and what was different. So Jeanet, please, I am so curious. Please tell me, what were your expectations versus the reality that wound up being KinnPorsche?
Okay, so just a quick thing, don't give any spoilers in the comments for Brittany's sake, but I was expecting Manner of Death vibes, shall we say?
Uh-huh.
So, like, I was kind of expecting, if you think, a little bit of CSI, but make it, a bit more with the Asian tropes, not as westernized.
Mm-hmm.
And that was definitely not what we thought.
Yeah, slightly different.
Yeah, so I was thinking CSI, but make it gay, and somehow, even with the but make it gay, it just went over there.
Yeah, it just turned out to be all No, yeah, so how, compared to the reality, CSI but make it gay, which by the way should entirely be a series on its own. Definitely CSI but make it gay. So then you think CSI but make it gay, and then you get like Mafia but make it gay, but then also make it like super stylized. Like, I feel like this definitely does not, I mean, the make it gay part they obviously got down, but I feel like the CSI vibes slightly different. Did you have to like adjust? Did you need like an adjustment period throughout the first episode, being like, oh, that's what this is?
I mean, I think most of my adjustment came when Porsche first spoke. I like he's way more flamboyant than I expected.
Oh, his first shot. The first shot, the intro shot we get of Porsche with literally like the light beacon coming down from it as it. Oh yeah, over the. I'm with you. Keep going.
Because I was going off of a trailer that I had seen, like, during the heights of COVID, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure. Like, it was one of the first trailers. They weren't even at that point sure if they were going to be keeping all the actors, if I understand it correctly. Um, and that looked like super high intensity, super serious all the time type of thing, and like actually a little bit like a enemies to lovers, opposite sides of two mafia gangs type of vibe, with Ken and Porsche being the two opposite sides, and ending up still liking each other. That was originally my impression. So I was thinking more like Romeo and Juliet, but make it mafia, which is not quite what we got.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Because I didn't watch the trailer, so I didn't have any. Not really. I didn't have any notions of the trailer going in. I would love to watch it now and see what the trailer was versus what the show turned out to be. Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, especially because the lighting was very dark as well. Like, it was very like there was a lot of red and orange lighting, if my memory serves me at all, which it often does not. But like it was a lot of like alleyways and things like that, which we got in the first episode, but the context was very different.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very different, and I think a lot more flamboyant than I expected. It has a lightness to it that I was not anticipating at all.
Yeah. Woo, pardon me. Yeah, I wasn't expecting the comedy either, and judging from the a few comments we have going on in chat, I think a lot of people were expecting it to be a lot more serious all the time, and then like I feel like episode 2 happened, and that was where the real like, oh no, there's also a lot of comedy that's going to be happening. Sure, yeah, and I think that kind of surprised people. It definitely surprised me. I was one of the ones I was expecting. I was like, okay, serious show, blah blah blah, and then we got way more comedy than I ever anticipated. My go ahead.
I think what surprised me as well was the type of comedy. I didn't expect almost slapstick.
Yeah.
Comedy.
Almost nothing. That was slapstick. When a character is like hugging a couple of dead fish, that's supremely silly, to the point of and when like one character takes a trip and plants their forehead into a fountain, like that's slapstick. Absolutely. I was not expecting that either.
Sorry.
My expectations, because I purposely didn't watch the trailer. I never watch trailers for things because they give away everything these days, and that's like supremely annoying. Sometimes for me, because I'm so anti-spoiler, sometimes I'll watch like a teaser trailer for something that's like 45 seconds and you get maybe like a line of dialogue and like one visual, that's the kind of thing that really gets me excited, because it's like the possibilities, right? Rather than being told, the story, or being given so many visual spoilers that I can piece together everything that happens before it happens, which my brain just kind of automatically does. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so anti-spoilers. But I did see, because of all the hype around it, I did see like, a GIF here, a still there from the trailer. And my expectations went to a place that was so high, I knew they weren't going to be met. I was like, oh man, they're going, I was like, this is going to be like the Brokeback Mountain of Thailand queer entertainment, in terms of it's taken seriously. The story is, executed in a particular way. And I was like, in the back of my head, I knew that wasn't going to be the case, but I was still expecting the show to move the needle for Thailand BL specifically in a big way. And it still did that. It didn't move the needle totally to where my extremely high expectations went. which I kind of, I guess, expected, but didn't really expect, because I was like, okay,
kind of
you're kind of
hopeful.
taking a little thing and running way down the field with it, so let's just relax and see what happens. But I think the show wound up being something that did really move the needle in terms of how much money you can put into a project. I feel like it still needed even more funding to really do everything that they wanted to do. You could still see that compared to other, mainstream projects, it wasn't working with the budget that a lot of those things get to work with. But it still wound up being something that I absolutely love, even if, like, I'm not big on slapstick and, like, the really silly comedy. I've never really been big on that. But the show was so many different things that, it had something for everybody. And I'm fine with that, because I got everything else that I ever could have possibly, wanted. So my expectations were pretty, like, serious, and then it wound up being a bit, very stylish, over the top, kind of takes itself seriously, kind of doesn't. And considering how now I've learned a bit more about how exactly the show came to be, and considering all of the new talent that was all over this show, from both cast to production and from just top to bottom everything, it's even more impressive to me now what they were able to do with so many new people.
I haven't really heard. I don't really know the behind the scenes information about the show yet. But yeah, for me, it was very interesting, because I get where you're coming from with the taking itself a bit more seriously. I was kind of expecting it to be very balanced between the seriousness of a mafia situation and the romance. And I think because of the humor, this is going to sound strange, but because of the humor, that balance wasn't as serious as I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, and that's
like
the thing I'm looking for in, like, the great Thailand BL series, the place that I kind of want them to get to eventually. Not all the time, because we all need our, like, silly campy rom-com Thai BLs. Like, those will never go away, right? But, like, where I want them to get, and I can see them going, like, I can see them being able to achieve this, is the absolutely serious drama of some type of love story that they've gotten really solid writing on, really solid directors on, and that the whole thing can be comparable to even Western things, even mainstream things in Chinese show. Like, I really see that they will be able to do that one day, and I think KinnPorsche is an absolutely excellent step in that direction. I'm not going to call it the right direction, because everybody wants something different from a BL series, right? But that was kind of where I was hoping that we would wind up. And even though it had some tonal differences, again, with the humor and stuff like that, they still move the ball pretty far down the field, I feel.
Okay, so I know this is not on the list, but I'm just curious.
No, please.
What for you, in terms of the production side, what for you was the best and the worst of KinnPorsche?
Ooh, production. Are we talking about everything, like, basically everything behind the camera?
Yeah, everything that went into creating what we saw.
I would say
I can go first if you want an idea of what I'm.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So for me, this is such a nitpick. I'm sorry. I am forever griping about the CGI and the special effects and so on.
Right.
But the explosions.
Yeah, I gotta go with you on
explosions and
that.
the
Uh-huh. Yeah. That's one of the reasons where I was like, they needed more money for a couple of different reasons. Like there were some crowd scenes that could have used more extras, but you know, they can't afford that. And you're like, low budget things, man, you're the little engine that could, and I totally get that. But yeah, the explosions definitely needed some more money behind them. And there were surprisingly, like, they did so much with a rather limited amount of resources. They did so many things, and they covered the fact that they had limited resources amazingly well. And the fact that there's only like a couple of little areas like crowd sized, or maybe the CG explosions, just a couple of places where it showed is really impressive.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like for me, I wouldn't take this as a low budget show at all.
Yeah.
Like the I wouldn't even think to equate the fact that the explosions were, too small.
Yeah.
With the budget, I kind of just assumed, oh, this is a BL. They maybe didn't really know where to source the right things, or they didn't, whatever reason that might be, they might this might fall a little bit out of the scope of the usual production.
Yeah, and actually, consider this is the to my knowledge, Beyond Cloud. This is the first show they've ever produced. I don't think they produced television like at all before this, and it was just because Mile knew the guy who basically was Beyond Cloud, knew Pond, and they got it financed when the financing initially fell through and the show was canceled. Mile basically picked it back up again with Beyond Cloud. And so, yeah, so that's what I mean. Like, there's a lot of new talent, like very new talent on the production side of this. And considering what they did with it, despite that, it was like super impressed. I'm very impressed.
Like that just kind of takes it up a notch for me personally. Like if I find out about things like that, it's like, okay, more respect, because it's difficult in the film industry. It really is. No matter which country it is, it's difficult.
Oh yeah. I really loved, they obviously had a lot of beautiful cinematography moments, and I spend so much time screaming about them that it would kind of be ridiculous for me to not mention them. But they put together some just astoundingly beautiful shots, and of course they had beautiful locations to work with. And they really got the most out of them. And they had some fantastic uses of color, to the point where my only like critique, and it's such a nitpick, it's such a that it shouldn't even really like count, because obviously all of the color throughout the whole show, and all of the lighting was stupid gorgeous. The fact that the only nitpick that I have is literally that for the Vegas and Pete scenes at the safe house, in the room that Pete was in, we had, because thematic purposes, totally get it, we had, the red and blue, or the pinkish red and the kind of aqua blue lighting going on. That was, from a very technical standpoint, that was unmotivated lighting. And by that, it's like, where is that light coming from? What is shining that light? What realistically is shining that light in from the thing? It's like, no, it's just they put colored lights in front of the window, and that's the thing. That's just how it's going to look, just because how, not because there's anything in the world that is really doing that. Whereas, you have lighting on a scene and you can see like, oh, there's a lamp in the background, there's a chandelier over there, and that's where the lighting is coming from. That's motivated lighting. And so the fact that that's such a weird, annoying little production thing that nobody is going to notice, except now I mentioned it, is astounding. Like, it's just,
I will counter that though, because like for me that didn't bother me as much. Like I wished it was a bit better lit so that we could see the acting a bit more, but that aside, for me what bothered me is like you have this heavy thematic lighting, and then when the relationship changed, there's no focus on emphasizing that with the lighting. Like if
Mm.
you're gonna do it, follow through.
I did notice that they did change, this is off the top of my head, although I would love to go through this entire series and like just focus on the lighting. There was one time off the top of my head where they did have the light on Vegas, which is largely red for about 90% of his screen time. There towards the end of the safe house arc, for lack of a better
Yeah,
word,
I
it
think it
it
went
had changed
blue.
to purple, as in like there
Oh
was
yeah.
some influence from Pete coming in. And that off the top of my head is an instance of changing, but I can't think of anywhere else where they kind of shifted and adapted to what was what was going on. I would love to come through and look at that though. That could be a whole other
Yeah.
series for me, going through and breaking down the cinematography. Oh man.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, no, because for me it was the locations. Like genuinely, every single time I saw a location, I was like, "This feel like I can believe a mafia boss would dine here. I can believe this is where the auctions would take place." That kind of thing. Like that really helped with the world building for me, where I wasn't taken out of the story
Mhm.
because that delivered. Um,
Yeah. Oh yeah, they
so
got
that was so good.
whoever booked the locations for this show needs like an award. I don't even think you give awards to the people who book I mean, they should get them though, because that is a difficult job to secure
It's
locations
a
for
it's
filming
a very
is
it's a very difficult
murder.
job.
They deserve awards. But yeah, whoever secured the locations for this series, God, I hope they like get a raise, because it's just stupid beautiful, every single thing, and perfect to what exactly where the scene needed to be set. Just
Mm.
outstanding, outstanding, absolutely. Let's go
Yeah,
ahead.
sorry, I
Yeah, no,
got
no, that was a
you
great
sidetracked there.
question. That was a great question. Yeah, so let's go ahead and kind of overall talk about episodes 1 through 4. So
Okay.
I already kind of broadly recapped it with you before the stream. But just for the general benefit of we're sitting here now and the benefit of everybody watching. So the whole just the first 4 episodes, you have how Porsche gets into being a mafia bodyguard for this guy he doesn't, particularly like, in a lifestyle that he's always wanted to stay away from. And then you have his terrible first day where everything goes wrong and he absolutely screws everything up to the point where he gets put on Tancoon's detail instead, and kind of sort of on purpose, sort of accidentally helps Tancoon kind of get out and about for the first time after shutting himself in for so long because of his traumatic experience being kidnapped years ago. And then it ends with the riverbank scene, which is Kin and Porsche's first kiss. And then episode 4 is when they're just not on the same page about who remembers what and all of that jazz. And then at the end of season 4 is when, Vegas drugs Porsche to get him up to the hotel room. Fortunately, doesn't have time to do anything because Kin and the bodyguard show up. And then that leads to the first love scene of the show. Um, I I barely know like where to start with the first 4 episodes. It surprised me in a lot of ways. I think, speaking about expectations versus reality, um, it wasn't as, I think overall, like there was like the premium bodyguard content like we all sign up for when you talk about like bodyguard concepts with romantic arcs, but I guess it wasn't as centered on the bodyguard angle, at least not for as long as I thought we would. I don't think any of us expected to get a kiss at the end of episode 3.
No,
That was
no.
crazy. That surprised the hell out of me. Were you? Yeah, you sounded like you weren't expecting it either. I sure as heck wasn't. You
No,
answer and I'll see if chat expected it.
I don't know where I got the idea from. I think I saw a comment. Someone was like, "Oh, I think I mentioned in the first episode that I was surprised that we hadn't gotten um like a lot of relationship building in the first episode because with a lot of the type BLs, you know, if they could have had the characters like fall in love before they meet, they would have done that type of thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, wow, like they're actually building this out a little bit before getting into them, you know, being a thing. And then I think someone commented, oh yeah, no, this is like a bit more slow burn. So like episode 3 hits and I'm like, slow burn who?
Right? And I mean, it was they pretty much, with the way that it wound up pacing out, like later on, when we get to the next chunk, which might actually be my favorite chunk in the series, they yeah, it was like, because a lot of Thai BLs, they're together by the midway point of a series or a season, and then the rest of it is, you know, them trying to stay together while the first half is getting together. Sometimes the whole thing is about getting together. But even then, even knowing that there's a good chance that they'll be together by the halfway point of this season, a kiss at the end of episode 3 still surprised me. And yet it made, not saying that like it didn't make sense, because oddly enough it did.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I understand why this is happening now. And I think it was like the first time that the show really demonstrated how much ground they can cover in a single episode. Because sometimes they cover a lot of ground and sometimes they didn't. And it just sort of depended, I think, on how they wanted things to play out across the season. But it absolutely, it was so weird. I was like, wow, this is happening really fast, and yet it totally makes sense, and I'm still on board with it.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised by how on board I was with it by the end of episode 3. I was like, you know, because I was so frustrated with, I'm not gonna lie, I was so frustrated with Porsche by the end of episode 2 that I did not think I was going to be rooting for him and Ken to be getting together at the end of episode 3.
What frustrated you about Porsche?
Like the fact that he, but I have to say, like, I feel like it was a bit of a series issue for me, and it just kind of was accentuated the most with his character, is how often they're put in very dangerous, serious situations, and the characters don't take it as seriously as I feel they should. And like, it was okay for me in a way by the end of, was it, which episode did we say Vegas assaulted Porsche?
That was towards the end of episode 4.
Yeah. So like, I don't want to say it was okay for me, that sounds terrible, but like it in a way it worked for me because we saw consequences to him not taking the very serious job as seriously. But because we didn't see any consequences really in episode 2, where he was like constantly making mistakes and pissing off Macau,
I feel like I understand.
I was like dying.
I understand having a bad first day. Absolutely. And I think like there are a couple of things that, and all the things that went wrong for him that day, there were a couple of things that really cemented that. I feel like they maybe went a bit far with exactly how bad a first day or first couple of days that a person can have. And to the point where it kind of felt like, not that, I mean, Porsche isn't the smartest guy on the planet, but he's still an intelligent person. And
Yeah.
it seemed that they went a little bit far with trying to establish like he's having a terrible first day, and that's why it's weird that he still has a job at the end of this. And that should be sending up flags. And I'm like, we could have done a couple of these. We didn't have to do all of this to establish that.
But I mean, for me, it wasn't like, I think maybe while I was watching it, it might have been that you talked about him, like, how does he still have a job by the end of this? But like looking back on it now, what really frustrated me that I struggled to articulate then wasn't so much like how much trouble he got into, but it very much started being like, not, oh, you know, he accidentally did this and this was the consequence. A lot of it, a lot of the instances became like, Porsche, I thought you were street smart. Why are you like? I think into this. And
that's partially what I.
Like, as you said, he's not dumb.
Yeah.
And some of the instances made him look dumb, which is like, this is a disservice to the character.
Yeah. No, that you put that much better than I did. And actually what I found really interesting about the fact that he drinks the water in episode 4 is that that's actually, it's a perfectly lined up miscommunication. Kinn is being told by his friends to like be nice to the fucking bodyguard that you clearly have the hots for. And so Kinn chooses that moment to, you know, just kind of do like a nice, pleasant, finally like smiling at Porsche for a change. And it just so happens to be as the bartender is offering Porsche that water. And so Porsche is thinking he's getting the go-ahead to drink the water.
Yeah.
And so he's like, oh, I can actually drink things now? I mean, if it was water, it may not have even been water. It may have been like, here's a cocktail, dude. I don't know. But he's like, oh, I can actually drink this? Okay. And that just so, it was a very clear miscommunication, which at least credited Porsche with the fact that, you know, he learned. It was like, okay, so getting tanked on the job may not be the best idea, but oh, he's giving me the go-ahead, so it's fine, right? And then it's really not fine. I really, these first 4 episodes are kind of like its own arc. In a way, I like to try to break things down structurally in terms of like different acts throughout a season, and I'm kind of having trouble breaking down season 1, or at least I guess like the first half of season 1, because like, do you call it the end of the initial arc when they have that first kiss at the end of episode 3, or is it really more the end of episode 4 because the first time characters have like a real love scene together is a big, kind of feels like act ending deal. But regardless, even though it all happened so much earlier and it still made so much sense, one of the things that really struck me about the end of episode 4 and the fact that it turned into a love scene that we weren't expecting, an episode after we had a kiss that we weren't expecting, right?
They were just like killing us.
Yeah, you're like, what? Was that it went into knowing nothing about the books, mind you. That was the first time where they really demonstrated the murky waters that they were willing to let these characters wade into. And I was really surprised by their willingness to go there, given BL's somewhat patchy history about that kind of thing.
That is
problem. And they really asked us for a lot of trust right out of the gate, because even at, you know, the end of episode 3, you know, Porsche's drunk, and then the end of episode 4, Porsche's drugged. And one of the things that I wish we had gotten more actually was actual words from Porsche at some moments and about some things, because like I can interpret and guess and pretty much be like, this is probably what they were communicating, not just for episode 4 but especially like episode 5. We really could have used Like they did so well in handling that situation, and our trust very much paid off, in my opinion. But we really could have used just a couple of extra clarifying words. Like I just wanted to pull it out of him about some detailed aspects about their situation and what was going on. Even though, like, ultimately, in terms of messiness and handling the messiness and the gray areas and the dicey areas well, I would honestly give them like a B+ or an A-. Like, so they passed with almost flying colors. That's just one of the things that I wish we had gotten a little bit more of. Also because I was just like super fucking curious to have things specified, but then also just from a general audience standpoint, I feel like we really needed that. But then it wound up paying off and being handled in a great way anyway. So really, that's again, that's another nitpick. The only things, a lot of the only, you know, critical things I have to say are basically nitpicks, as opposed to anything really grand.
For me, the issue, or not like the issue, but the thing with situations like that is I very much tend to play off of the characters
Same.
And how they handle it.
Yeah.
So for me, I was iffy about the ending of episode 4, even though I do want to like discuss it a little bit more.
Right.
But I was iffy about it because you're aware that there is not complete consent going on. It's very dubious.
Yeah.
And so on.
Like
so
by definition, like just the fact that one of them is one of them is drugged and one of them is not. Even though I feel like they went out of their way to communicate that Porsche knew what was happening, who he was with. We saw him express lack of consent to Vegas by headbutting him in the nose. And then he demonstrated repeatedly enthusiastic consent with Kinn that Kinn was not understanding because he didn't know that Porsche remembered everything at that point. But even then, even when they checked all those boxes, at the end of the day, one character is drugged and one is not. And that automatically becomes dubious consent that wanders into a very, very difficult gray area. Continue, I'm sorry.
Exactly. And that's why I was like, with the start of episode 5, and I do want to go back to episode 4, but with the start of episode 5, I was like being like, I will handle it as seriously as Porsche feels it. And then he seemed to feel it very seriously, which made it all the more serious for me as a viewer. And I think that made episode 5 a very difficult watch, because even though I was satisfied by how they ended up handling everything at the end, going through it not knowing where this was gonna go.
Yeah.
I was very much like, I hate the situation. Why are you putting me in this? I thought you guys were better than this.
Yeah. I know Porsche's, and this is a true testament to Apo, because Porsche's inner life in season 5 is unbelievable. It's so good and so well acted, and a completely other side, way more serious than we've ever seen Porsche up until this point. And you can tell that that so many different things about the situation has really gotten to him in some very, very heavy ways, and it was portrayed so beautifully. But again, because we didn't know where it was going to end up, and BLs have a patchy history, it was just kind of like, okay, that was, at some point in episode 5, was one of the biggest things where I feel like we really could have used just 1 or 2 extra words from Porsche about what exactly he was treating this as. I have my own interpretation, and I feel like I have a handle on what they were probably intending, and that they probably wanted the audience to be kind of uncomfortable in that way of, how is he considering this? What does he think about this? And they were kind of putting us in a very tense spot throughout that episode. So I think part of it was on purpose and to tremendous effect because I was like fucking ill for that entire episode, not knowing where Porsche was at because like you, I very much go off of, that the character in that position and how they respond to everything because that's just giving agency to the character. Like it does matter what the character thinks and how they feel about it. And, but like towards the end or somewhere, just a couple of extra words to clarify a very, very gray area would have been nice. But at the same time, it was such a tremendous performance. That was the first episode where I was really impressed by Appo.
Yeah.
He really, I was rather stunned. I was like, oh my God. Absolutely.
Yeah, and for me, the bits that I want to go back to, I don't know why it hit me as hard as it did, but it really like I focused in on it very much, was the way that the restraint that Kinn was exercising during the ending scene of episode 4. The way that was portrayed was so good. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I felt it in my soul. It was just so well done.
Yeah, that was a real shining moment for Mile as well. Yeah. And it's and of course I'm so on board with taking this apart because I'm in the middle of taking it apart because I'm doing that whole analysis thing. But yeah, Mile in that whole scene at the end of episode 4 did such a good job with that character's inner life and the hesitation and the he's just fucking with me kind of thing because he doesn't remember anything, but he knows I'm gay, so he's just some drag, and then learning the opposite of that. And you get why it's not unlike, directly mirrors, you know, the end of episode 3 with that kiss on the docks. You understand why it happens at the end of episode 4, and to an even greater extent, Kinn goes to in like episode 5 to kind of be like, that was all right? That was probably like not the best thing I could have done, which is the same thing he had like throughout episode 4. In episode 4, he tries to talk to Porsche about what happened on the docks, and that's how he finds out that Porsche doesn't remember. He tries to make sure that was okay, and then it kind of carries them off to this whole new place at the end of episode 4 where he has to do that again, and it is actually a great escalation of their relationship and their situation. And about this momentum that they were gathering kind of despite themselves. But yeah, Mile really, I think Mile impressed me at the end of episode 4 because he played that out very well. And of course, they were both doing, you know, great jobs throughout. But I think the first time, jumping ahead a little bit for a quick second, the first time I was like really impressed with Mile was actually the next love scene at the end of 7 and yet another bathroom, because of how that
I was like watching most of the sex scenes through a pillow, so
I know, and then meanwhile my face is like right up against the as close. Can I climb into my computer screen? Yes. Although actually, yeah, this is a pretty good excuse to transition to episodes 5 through 8, which, let's see.
I just do want to, like, just a quick round off of episode 4. I do feel like the way that Kinn showed restraint helped me a little bit with my concerns about the W's consent.
Yes.
Like, it took the consent from bordering on non-consent to, okay, well, he is trying to figure out if Porsche wants this.
And he's like, and he keeps getting, you know, the green light, and he keeps getting the green light, and he's thinking that, well, but, you know, Porsche is just, he's just screwing around. He's just screwing around. He's just drugged and screwing around because he knows I'm gay and he doesn't remember a thing. And then it doesn't change until Ken finds out otherwise in that scene. And then that's when it looks like he gets, I'm trying to figure out the best way to word this, but it looks like in the moment before he kisses Porsche, and then at the end of episode 3, and then the moment where he really goes in at the end of episode 4 after he finds out that Porsche remembers. It's like he's taken by the same, he's almost like a man possessed. It's like he gets very tunnel visioned on Porsche and what draws him to Porsche and everything that's happening inside of him that some we know about and some we don't, because we haven't heard about Tawan at this point at the end of episode 4. But the same similar thing seems to come over him that makes his brain shut off. And he just goes for it. Even though if he had maintained his higher reasoning, he'd be like, he's drugged right now. It's probably not the greatest time. I've been resisting him so this far. We should probably just clean him up and leave. But then this switch happens and he winds up doing something impulsive that, even though, Porsche was absolutely eager, still not the greatest thing if the guy's drugged. And we get that inner life from Mile as well in episode 5. Which, cause he's just kind of gone and done it again. It's kind of like the next day he's like, God damn it, Mile, first you kiss the guy when he's drunk, and then you go all the way when he's drunk, and Porsche really takes the forefront, as he should, in terms of the real angst, trying to like figure everything out. But I feel like they did a real justice to Ken as well, trying to sort through. It's like you got feelings of guilt going on with feelings of being with, the guy that you really liked, but now you're like, is he okay with this? Am I a monster? Is him and you're like, yeah, man, you pretty just tilted headfirst into a real gray situation there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of like where I would say episode 6 really came in and saved it.
Oh my god, yes. I was about to be like, please, let's talk about episode 6. My favorite episode in the season. Absolutely.
Because like episode 5, because it was so clear that like Porsche was obviously affected by it. And
Porsche was bare minimum feeling used. Yeah.
And I think before the resolve that we got at the end of episode 6, there was even, maybe I'm misremembering, but I want to say there was another instance where the consent was not quite clear. I think it was at a bar during Tankoon's situation. Was that before or after episode 6? I just
Between
remember
Ken
that,
and Porsche?
like, yeah. When was? No, that might have been after.
Are you talking about
the
bathroom scene involving hands?
Yes.
Yes. No, that actually does come. That does come in episode 7. That comes after episode 6, which is one of the reasons why I find it so interesting.
Oh, that is true.
Yeah.
That is true, because I remember. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Moving that on for later. But yeah, I was very confused. I was like, I don't know where they stand with each other. They don't know where they stand with each other. Am I still shipping this?
Yeah. No, episode 6 really, I mean, that was the real, as far as this series is concerned, that's when they hit the real sweet spot, in my opinion, of having a great, and competently done show married with giving people everything they want. I feel like that really came together in a big way as a whole with episode 6. Obviously there were plenty of times where that also came together in certain scenes and moments in the show, but as a whole, I feel like episode 6 is the real marriage of great, having a great story, but also giving everybody exactly what they want. and being as tropey as possible, but taking that trope seriously enough that it doesn't feel flimsy and ridiculous.
Yeah.
How they got, you know, naked for the waterfall even though they were handcuffed aside, and that whole thing's ending aside, which I didn't even realize at the time, and then people were pointing it out, and I was like, oh yeah, how did they get they're handcuffed? How did they get shirts off? It's fine. There are some things in this show where you're like, it's fine. Hand wave it, it's fine. That aside, I feel like it was a real marriage.
And that was a great episode, because I feel like it was only after I'd watched that episode that I realized we basically just got KinnPorsche that entire episode, and I was fine with it.
Yeah.
Like they really did it well enough that I was invested the entire episode without being like, okay, can we go to KinnPorsche now?
Yeah. Or like, what's going on over here?
KinnPorsche was my happy escape.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just so well done, because I feel like they really took the time to kind of build up the okay, you know, we're stuck together, so let's just make the best of it. And then the slow transition, you know, that felt like an adequate amount of time for everything that the characters went through throughout that entire episode. I didn't feel rushed at all, and I wasn't bored for one moment.
Oh, so no, not at all. Yeah.
Fine balance to walk.
Yeah, they really, in terms of like greater plot wise, you know, they really took a second to just step back and give Kinn and Porsche the time that they needed for relationship building. There's the first scene is when, you know, Chan and the bodyguards are looking for him. There's a little bit of an interjection like in the middle that just kind of keeps you up to date with how like the outside search is going, but that's it. They largely just like, these are two guys out lost in the wilderness and they're handcuffed together and they have to deal with each other and they have to get past some very big issues in their dynamic and their relationship if this show is going to keep going. And they really went there. They used the natural lighting so beautifully that I could like collapse, like let alone like the sunset when they first find the truck that they stay in was stupid gorgeous. That the dawn, the gray dawn that they used when Porsche lays down on Kinn for the first time, really, and just that whole, even, you know, when they're stuck in the crevice and they have the natural light coming in from, so beautiful. They really, I was like, can we just do the rest of the show outdoors? Do we really need to be inside anywhere for, you know, mafia and contemporary city driven things? Can't we just all go out into the wilderness? Because this is unbelievably beautiful. Just the whole thing was stupid gorgeous. Did I lose her? Did I lose everything? What's happening? Hang on. We have frozen. Hang on. Hang on. Of course. It doesn't, it's so funny. I think it's an OBS problem. But it's not tanking. Hang on. Did Skype dip out? It did. It did. Okay. Okay. Hang on. Hang on. Okay. Did my? Oh, no, god damn it. Let's see. Aha! Hang on. Hold, please, if we are still up. That's loud. Let's kill that. If you can still hear me, and I'm not sure if you can, but you should be able to. If you can still hear me, we're trying to get Jeanet back, and this is all built on tiers. You're having to start in Skype, go to a program called OBS, and then go from OBS to YouTube. And we are having problems on the Skype end of things. And that affects everything else. So just stay with me. I'm trying to get her back. But that also comes in really super loud. But you guys may not be hearing that. So let me try to get her back again. Which puts me up at a weird... Let me stretch myself out there for a second. There we go. Okay, I cannot get... Aha! There she is. Hang on. Hang on.
Yay!
There we go. Okay, hang on. Let me sort the heck out. The OBS display is like having a real moment.
I'm
hang
sorry,
on.
let me just quickly close my door. I'm so sorry.
Sure.
I don't know. My internet is giving issues again.
Ah, okay.
Okay, let me
Gotcha,
quickly just
that's
close the
you.
door so the sound is better.
Let me shrink myself so I'm not so gigantic. I'm not getting video from you at the moment. How about you guys in chat?
Hi.
Hey.
Okay. Sorry about that. I panicked, as I promised I would.
Yes. Let's see. Can we still see me, hear me? I cannot. There's video for you. So I can now see you, Jeanet, and so you guys should be able to see them here in a second.
Hi, sorry.
They can hear you. I'm getting everything. It's looking like everything is back on. Yeah, okay. Now we're getting it back on, which is how it looks in. All right. Of course, we run 2 test streams that work flawlessly. But the true Gaywatch experience, when you're actually doing it, something happens.
I'm really sorry.
Okay, everyone's on. There may be a little bit of lag. We're trying to... It's like, now I am out of sync, apparently.
Oh, goodness.
You're
in sync for me.
Right? Yeah, and like it's looking like I'm synced for OBS. So weird. Let me see real quick, and then if it doesn't work, then I just get to be off. But let me turn that down, and then right. So am I still off? Is the sync still off, guys? If it's still out of sync, yeah, see, thank you, Annika. It's not a proper Gaywatch live stream if there wasn't something technical going wrong. It is very true. That is my brand at this point. We're very proud. Okay. All right, cool. It's a little bit of lag for me, but you know, yeah, the sync is still off, but I think we just get to deal with it. I tried taking off the delay from the audio, but okay, let me put the display back together so that people aren't peeking behind the curtain too much. That looks much better. Okay.
Sorry about that.
I am so sorry about the lack of sync. I guess something about having to bring the call back up must have knocked me out of sync, but if I were to fix it, I would have to like down the stream entirely. So treat it as a podcast. You know? Who needs visuals even though we've gone to great lengths to secure them for you? Okay.
So you were in the middle of telling me about the wonderful natural lighting when I lost the plot.
Yes, the absolutely stunning natural lighting of season episode 6, where yeah, I was almost like, do we really need to like go back inside for the rest of this series? Can we just do this all outdoors? Because they used it so well from the sunset to the dawn, and I have no idea where I got actually cut off. But to summarize, everything looked particularly gorgeous and wonderful in episode 6 as well, on top of all of the fantastic relationship development that we got. There was a particularly amazing use of the rule of 3 that, because I'm a writing nerd, is one of my favorite things about the episode.
Okay,
aside
tell me.
Aside from like the actual end where Porsche turns around and goes back, that lives rent free in my head.
Yes.
But from a writing nerdy standpoint, so there's such an excellent use of the rule of 3. And just in case anyone who's watching doesn't know what that is, that's a thing that's used a lot in comedy, but it's also used a lot just in writing in general. The rule of 3 exists because you use the first 2 times to set up a pattern, and then the third time is different. That's literally the requirement. It's a very, very broad technique. It doesn't lock you down into anything, so it can be used in all manner of ways, right? In comedy, it's really like a good example would be, one character tries to slap another character and fails, tries to slap another character and fails, and then seemingly gives up, but then turns around and backhands them successfully. Like something really basic like that. Like that would be a good example of the rule of 3s. So in this episode, in a very macro sense, because it takes the whole episode for this rule of 3 to play off, it starts with Porsche and the lighter, if I am not mistaken. Porsche just lets Kin sit there and try to start a fire, and then Porsche brings out, his lighter. He's like, okay, I have a lighter, and Kin's like, you fucking bastard. And then later on, when Kin's trying to fish, and Porsche just kind of lets him go at it with a dull stick, and he's like, you need to sharpen the stick, man. And Kin's like, well, how are we supposed to? And Porsche's like, okay, I found a knife, right? I found this knife. And
I just happen to have it on me.
Right, yeah, I found it in the truck last night. Knife, I'll show you how to fish. I'll sharpen the thing, and yeah. So that's 2. The third is when Porsche's like, I'll cut off my fucking hand, and you can escape. And here's the knife, cut off my hand. And Kin reaches across and undoes the handcuffs with like a flick of his wrist, which he could have done the whole time. Ever since the knife was introduced during the fishing scene. He could have set them free, but he didn't because he wanted to work things out with Porsche. And just reaching over, and that rule of 3, that's different. Porsche clowned him. Kin wins the episode, really.
Yeah.
By leaning over, being like, oh yeah, with a knife, every member of my family can get out of handcuffs. One of the most amazing uses of the rule of 3 that I have ever seen. So good that I actually recounted it to the wife, who does not watch this show, has no idea what I was talking about. But I was like, no, I've talked to you about the rule of 3 before. This is one of the best instances I've ever seen. And it made me so ungodly happy. It was so good.
I stopped watching your reactions at episode 5.
Oh, yeah?
You were like, so I was like, okay, I will also not watch. And I was a bit behind as well. So I have yet to see episode 6. After episode 6, I was like, I must wait, because once I watch episode 6, I want to watch your reaction to episode 7 as well. So I waited, and then I was like, okay, no, I will contain myself. It is fine.
We find, oh yeah. Oh, episode 6 it really is. It is my favorite overall of the whole season. That's the real high point of the season for me, absolutely. Just everything from beginning to end. Just so good.
But like, I'm intrigued though, because couple-wise,
sure.
For me, episode 6 definitely was their shining moment. Which of the other two couples, which episodes were their shining moments for you?
Oh, well, here's the thing, and I'm really glad that season 2 is basically all but confirmed, or basically confirmed, or pretty much happening, pretty much, is that I think Kim Chae got close with that, actually, with one moment in the finale that we're kind of not talking about yet, but there was a moment in the finale where they kind of got close, but I actually don't think Kim Chae has really had that moment yet, or that episode yet. I think they kind of, they let them kind of exist in kind of the same state for a very long time throughout the season. But I'm waiting for that moment from Kim Chae. Vegas and Pete, that's a whole, because so much happens. Because again, one of the things that, had I written this, I would have stretched out Vegas and Pete way more over the course of basically the second half of the season instead of like the last 4 episodes. Basically, I would have given them double the amount of time to really build that up. I think I even figured out where exactly I would actually drop Pete into the safe house earlier, because I'm a nerd. But yeah, it's so hard to choose even just like a general episode, because they go so far over such a short period of time. And I mean, in classic KinnPorsche fashion, as in like the show, not the pairing, things happen a little quicker than you'd think they would, and yet it still makes sense. They're just really good at doing that. And they did that with Vegas and Pete as well.
Yeah, they did.
Absolutely, definitely. I think Vegas and Pete were going to end up feeling a bit rushed no matter what they did, because they only left themselves basically 4 episodes for really a lot of development. And just considering the place you're starting and the place you're ending with these two, you just needed more time. But even so, what would be a good, because there were so many, considering that one of the scenes that I'm going to be going to analyze involves Vegas and Pete, I'm going to save that answer for when I have to analyze their love scene, because then I will have had more time to really go in and dig into them. I haven't had the time yet, even though I've seen all the episodes, more than once. I still need a bit more time to wrap my head around everything, and I loved all of it, which is another problem. That's why it's so hard. Is because I loved all of it, even if I thought that they needed more narrative time to really go to the places that they wanted to go to, in terms of beginning and end. But yeah, that's why it's so hard, because all of it was just so good, really. Yeah. I feel like they stretched out KinnPorsche moving into, I guess, like the later part of the season. I feel like they kind of stretched out KinnPorsche a little bit to where they were kind of idling for an episode here or there. And then meanwhile, they like crammed in Vegas and Pete into like 3 or 4 episodes. And I was like, I feel like there's a nice little happy medium there where we can kind of condense KinnPorsche and stretch out Vegas and Pete, and then probably actually keep the amount of screen time for Kim and Chae the same, but just do different things within that screen time. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not above just doing a fan fiction rewrite of the entire series, which I've basically already started doing in my head, but like, that's about...
I would read that. It's fine.
But yeah, that's why it's hard to, not that I just went on a whole ass ADD tangent, I apologize. But yeah, that's why it's hard to figure out what like my favorite sequence from Vegas and Pete is, because it was all good. It all happened very fast in a very short period of time. But I will have that answer by the time I do their video, which will be number 3, here in a few weeks or something. I've had to set myself a deadline so that it actually happens, but it will.
I understand that one very well.
So later in the, speaking of Vegas and Pete, actually, what are your feelings on Vegas and Pete? I just hogged the mic for like 5 minutes. You take it. Vegas and Pete, go.
It was a rough start. It was. I was very much not on the train. Like I was like I am gonna have to just tolerate it for for every scene that they're in, because I'm not gonna enjoy it.
Yeah, that's totally fair. It's not for. I even got to the point where I was like, okay, they're not going to redeem Vegas. I didn't think they were. I think I was like, this is going to be a Hannibal situation where everybody's crazy, everybody's deeply, dysfunctional, torturous, abusive, and it's just, that's what you sign up for in this fictional space. That's what I thought as well. So that's totally valid. Sorry, keep going.
So I think again where it comes in with responding to how the characters handle the situation, the way that Vegas and Pete handled each other throughout this was really what brought it back for me. Because I was like, if this is like heavily traumatic for Pete, and this is something that he like, where he basically develops Stockholm syndrome, or he like breaks completely, I will accept that is the story that they want to tell, because it is, after all, it is a mafia based story. Not all of this is going to be roses. There's going to be a couple of guns involved, and I was like fully on board with accepting that I was not going to be liking this couple, but that's okay.
Sure.
And then they switched it, and I was like, how in one episode did I go from hating this man's guts to being like, I can get behind it?
It was the hedgehog. Which I feel like they could have done that with a different pet, because there's something inherently funny about hedgehogs to me. And so it was kind of hard to go there. I was like, it's just any other pet. It's just, that's what they're going for. It's a whole pet thing, Brittany. Just calm the fuck down. It's fine. It's whatever. It's fine. But that was like quite literally just me.
I like, for me, it's weird because when we were doing the test runs, I mentioned that I didn't really cry throughout the show. The pet dying was one of the moments where I actually did cry.
Oh, that's right. We talked about this, how you hadn't like cried throughout the show, and I was like, really? Because I was waterworks at a couple of good few moments, but then again, I'm a fairly easy touch. If something strikes me as even remotely authentic, tears.
I cry very easily as well. I think a lot of my viewers can attest to that, and I've had a few comments where they're like, I can't wait to see you cry. I'm like, why? Why?
Oh yeah. No, I got a bunch of comments like that for the end of that one particular episode in The Untamed. Where like I couldn't even end the video. I was sobbing so hard. I just kind of ended it.
Oh. That was me, like with Word of Honor episode 35. They were like, oh, we can't wait to see your reaction for that. I'm like, oh, great.
It's like, fantastic, guys. Wonderful. Love you too.
But I think my issue was a bit with the reason why I found that I not struggled to cry, but didn't find myself crying, was partly because of the pacing.
Yeah.
Which is strange, but for example, Big's death.
Yeah.
I wasn't given time to process it. The characters weren't given time to process it. So I didn't process it. So it just kind of was like, okay, we're accepting this and moving on. So I was just like,
Yeah.
I want to cry, but you're not giving me time.
Yeah, I kind of had similar. I feel like they skirted, Big's death because they had to / kind of wanted to get onto other things. And I was like, that was kind of, it felt like a bit of a, like, you didn't need to go nuts. You didn't need to have like some, 10, 15-minute long chunk of an episode dedicated to this, bodyguard who's been largely a, tertiary, kind of background character this whole time. You didn't need to go crazy, but something would have been nice, would have let us feel that for a second, be like, oh shit, Big. We like Big. People like Big. We like Big. And then now he's gone. And the characters were even more, invested than we were. They worked with him every single day. And he'd been a bodyguard for that family for a long time. So yeah, I feel like we definitely missed that.
Yeah, so that frustrated me because you could literally have just solved it with having Kinn wanting to go back to see if he's still alive and Porsche restraining him. And that would have been enough. That would have been enough for me to be like, oh, I'm gone.
No, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I feel like we talked about them earlier in the season, kind of doing a little bit of disservice to Porsche and Porsche's intelligence. They also did a little bit of a disservice to Kinn in terms of, not wanting to go back for Big, not demonstrating that kind of, love and care for his bodyguards, that he has said that he has love and care for, and we know that he does. But then they missed that opportunity. And then in one of the more contrived moments of the plot, they like literally had him forget about Pete. And I was like, you just insulted Kinn's character. He never would have been like, damn, did I forget something? What did I forget? And then like, they kind of picked it up by when he did remember, he, made a couple phone calls. But like, just the fact that I was like, no. Like, I respect that you feel like you needed to have some kind of hole in order to get the narrative through to this. But no, I feel like they sold Kinn short there.
Yeah, they literally could have had him again. Like, I'm sorry, I'm one of those writers who's like, you could have just fixed that just that way.
Yeah, no, man, I'm like, if you just moved this a little bit over to the left, it would have solved all your problems, man. What are you doing? Yeah, no, me too.
I've literally had them like have sex, as they often do, fall asleep, have him wake up early morning, like with the sudden realization of Pete, and we would have avoided all this insulting of his intelligence, and like there would still have been the time passing.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't need to throw that in.
Yeah.
But it was so frustrating.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, I'm with you. It didn't make, kind of like how, and I feel like this is the part that I'm always going to get hung up on, kind of like how their bodyguards should be wearing fucking bulletproof vests. That's one of those things about this series where I'm like, well, we know, I respect that you wanted to get from A to C, and so that's your B, but I feel that was incorrect in terms of having Kinn forget Pete. I was like, in fact, I remember going from after that episode, everybody was making such a big deal about Kinn forgetting Pete, and it made so little sense to me that I was like, oh no, that's not what he was talking about. That couldn't have been what he was talking about. Like, oh, did I forget something? Like, that was totally what he was talking about.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, you had a bit too much faith in him.
Yeah. So,
no, but the vests. I'm like, you guys are bodyguards. You should be wearing vests 24/7. I'm surprised you're not sleeping in them.
Like, there are still headshots, you're still vulnerable, even when you're wearing a bulletproof vest, but it's just...
Yeah, you can... Your arm can be shot, your leg can be shot, anything, but just wear the vest.
Yeah, and like, especially, I mean, Big, headshot at that range. Fine. That would have been fine. You put him in a bulletproof vest anyways, man. Put everybody in a bulletproof vest. The only person they put in a bulletproof vest was Tawan, and nobody wanted a vest on that motherfucker. Yet there they were. Yeah.
I was like, why is he the one with the brains? He should be running this operation.
The one brain
he
cell.
It.
The one brain cell, man. And he had to have it? Damn. But really, that's one of those things that, given just the general style and tone of this series, it is very over the top. It is very fun. They do, as much as, you know, they care about their characters, you know, and they do great character work. There are definitely, you know, parts of this series that are just fun, and you're not meant to really think about things like that hard. I mean, if you want to, if you enjoy that, like I feel like we do, to certain extents, then yeah. But there's just parts of this series that you kind of have to lovingly like hand wave in an KinnPorsche kind of way. Otherwise, you would drive yourself absolutely bonkers. Yeah. And if 21-year-old me had seen this show, I would have had a very different opinion of it. I hadn't learned that yet.
Yeah, no, like I think there's the points somewhere in your teens you're like, okay, cool, you know, just going with it. And then somewhere in your early 20s, you're like, okay, no, I'm taking this too seriously. And then you find the happy medium.
Yeah. And then you realize that, some things are on. I had a weird misunderstanding that every show, every book, every, you know, major like piece of art in that way, every story was trying to be realistic and, you know, make sense all the time. And that was the goal that everybody was striving towards. And if you missed that mark, then you just, you know, like failed in that respect, which is ridiculous because obviously people make campy things on purpose and silly things on purpose. And I don't know why I got it into my head that like, no, we're all striving to be like very serious. Nah, man, you can just have fun with it. And thank God I learned that before I came to KinnPorsche. Right. So, okay. In interest of, taking your camera's batteries into account, real quick, let's talk about a couple of the even later episodes. So like we've had Tawan happen, which was a whole fucking thing. We all knew he was full of shit, and then he turns out to be full of shit, but then Vegas had a hand in everything, and we finally get that revealed, and there's all of that shootout, and now we're really into, I think, episodes like 11, 12, 13. We're really getting into the Vegas and Pete stuff now, and we're kind of setting up for the finale, which actually I feel like they probably didn't do until 13, 12 kind of maybe.
Yeah, it was about 13 where the finale really came into play.
Yeah, and but then there was, which one was it in particular? I think it may have been 11, where the tonal shifts got real extreme. And I feel like there was probably a better way to go about that, which is weird to say because individually, the two things that were going on, you had Vegas and Pete stuff happening, and then you had KinnPorsche stuff happening, and two drastically different, you know, I loved everything that happened separately in those things. So it's not like, oh, what a bad episode or anything, but the smash cuts to an entirely different realm of like the human experience practically was a bit much. As much as I enjoyed everything that they showed me, it was real. I've never had that experience in a show before.
Yeah,
where they go to such extremes.
But again, I feel like it wouldn't have been as bad if we didn't have that absolutely insulting moments of, what did I forget?
Yeah.
Because
Uh-huh.
like if you just had him like, okay, we settled that he thought he thinks that the Peter's safe, and that's why if things are going the way it's going.
Yeah.
If we just had that,
From the beginning,
it
yeah.
would, from the beginning, it probably wouldn't have grated on me so much, them just going about their lives and so on. But because there was that thing of like, oh, I forgot, I didn't follow up, and even though I have a gut feeling that something is wrong, I'm not going to send someone over to double check when we know they have enough manpower. So I feel like if there had been a little bit more of a moment of, okay, we're taking Pete's possible disappearance a bit more seriously, despite us like going about our life, I probably wouldn't have felt as much of a, this juxtaposition is a bit too much.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. And pardon, I agree too. Yeah, no, that makes sense. That would have, yeah. Because for all of the really great, plot developments and character work that they do, there's definitely a lot of contrivances as well. Which, when I found out that all the new talent that went on in making this show made so much sense to me. They really, and you get the sense that they really did the absolute best that they possibly could, and I entirely respect that. And what they did was like, obviously fantastic. It has now caught fire. Like, congratulations, it's a huge success for very good and very well-earned reasons. And that's what makes me super excited about season 2, because it's like, now they've done this and everybody has learned so much from doing this. What the heck are they going to be able to do for season 2?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's,
and like,
yeah.
For me as well, okay, let me hold this off until we're getting to episode 14.
Sure.
But I feel like just with the starts of the show, there was a lot of times where I felt like, okay, this is a bit predictable. I saw that coming, and so on. And I feel like it's interesting to me because I feel like you could see how they grew in their storytelling even as the show progressed itself.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think the person or the people behind, the writing of episode 1 could have done episode 14 if they had tried to do it at the same time. I think there was a definite growth arc in terms of just the writing along the way. I agree. And we can get into episode 14 now. We're coming in on the last about 20-25 minutes before your poor camera battery gives up the ghost. I know. Leave it to us. There's really a whole other, 2-hour conversation we could have after this. But so the finale. You had to watch the finale earlier today and then literally run off to work, and I don't know how you did that, because I'm still processing, and it's been a little over 24 hours now, and I'm still processing. So, okay. All right. Okay. Let me think, because obviously kind of a lot happens in the last episode, and we are about to spoil, like, all of it. So if you haven't seen, if you're sitting in chat and you haven't seen the finale, now is the time to cut out, because we are going to talk about everything, okay? So this has been your warning. You should be Xing out right now if you don't want any spoilers. Okay? Yes. You have had
just a quick,
plenty of time.
Before we get into that, we've barely touched on KinnPorsche. General thoughts. KinnPorsche.
Oh, yeah. I think, well, kind of going back to where I'm still waiting for like their big moment. I'm still waiting for like the real development of their relationship to begin. Like, it feels like we've only seen their act 1.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like we've only seen kind of like the opening thing. It's like, okay, now he knows, now Che knows that Kim is involved in the mafia. And now they're able to relate to each other in a more honest way because we all know the truth. Whereas they could only go so far in the beginning because Che just didn't know all these things. They didn't really know who the other person really was. So yeah, I feel like we haven't really seen. I feel like they were kind of maybe done a disservice a little bit a little bit in that way, because they could have, I guess, gone. We could have at least seen their act 2. I feel, but they really held off.
Yeah, but it's interesting to me. Out of all 3 couples, did you think that the high school vibe romance would be the slowest burn that we got?
Right? Right? No.
Oh
no,
God.
Absolutely not. It is by far, very far, the slowest burn of the whole thing. Which is, one of the reasons why, I mean, I feel like it added a great dynamic to the show. I think it was a good example of the show trying to be so many different things, but still fitting all under one umbrella that was the show as a whole. Sometimes you got into like tonal weirdness with maybe some slapsticky stuff coming out of nowhere when you expected it to be kind of played a bit more seriously. Or like the episode we talked about, cutting back from 2 very extremes. They did have some tonal issues, but I feel like Kim and Che largely like brought something, a really refreshing angle that would just pop up every now and then. They would pop up and like camp out for like 5 minutes of screen time for it to be like just them and what's going on with them, which was pretty great actually. But they would just come in and kind of, I don't know, they really filled out a corner of the show that wound up being really necessary and made the show feel a lot fuller. And of course it was all like fucking adorable, right? I mean, I had no idea who Kim was, like the actor, the musician. Never seen him before in my life.
No, me
and
neither.
so when he first popped up, I kind of flatlined. I did.
I still flatline every single time.
Right? I still have moments of flatlining. Yeah, because I just can't. What? Kind of like how I feel like I wish we had gotten more words from Porsche about his situation. I wanted more words from Kim about his situation. It was really fascinating to watch his whole inner life play out as he kept spending time with this just pure little ray of sunshine, and which actually complements, believe it or not, Vegas and Pete in a very different way. But they do have that parallel of like, you have the guy who's sitting here in a mafia family, he's investigating his own father, and he's getting closer to this kid to use him for information on this new bodyguard that's running around. And but then the kid turns out to be just the most innocent ball of sunshine you could possibly conceive of. And we watch Kim go through that process of, yeah, he's cute, he's innocent, sure. And then it's like, oh, he's actually like just kind of the kindest human ever. And Kim doesn't get to see that very often. When does he get to run into that? And then Che being so bold, and the fandom is totally giving Che credit for this, and we should. Che was just shooting his shot the whole time, man, because he'd never had his heart broken before. So he was like, I'll put myself out on a limb, sure. This guy is some famous musician, but, you know, I'm still gonna take the opportunity because, like, what can I lose? And then And then we had to see exactly what he can lose, which was like absolutely fucking heartbreaking. And
but also I think it was so nice because with him, they mention at the start quite a few times that he's the youngest, and I think with Porsche, like being around Porsche actually allowed him to be the age that he actually is.
Yeah.
And that just was so kind of beautiful to see, because you see he is actually like a bit soft himself. I mean, as soft as a mafia family allows you to be.
Yeah.
But he's actually very considerate and still relatively naive in certain ways. And it was just kind of nice to see that, because he was very attractive, and he was very much like what you would expect the main mafia guy to be in any other BL. But he, like, the fact that we got to see that made him more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And they which is, I mean, I wish we had gotten like more dialogue about that. I'm like, there's clearly so many great things going on with you, Kim. You want to talk about it, but that also emphasized the fact that both all three of the, for lack of a better term, but for all three of the tops, right, in the show, okay, they all had varying degrees of loneliness going on. They were all feeling very isolated and very alone and very kind of, they're all trapped in this life and this role that they are trying to fulfill. And Kim's loneliness, I think in part was also communicated by the fact that, I mean, who do we see him interact with, really?
Yeah.
Like, outside of Che, like, he doesn't, go off and have a heart-to-heart with Kin or, Tankun or any friends he may have or anything like that. And they really kind of subtly communicated the degree to which this guy doesn't really have anybody. He's the youngest, and his two older siblings have their own shit going on. And now I'm starting to identify a little too hard with Kim. And and you're just kind of sitting here and you're going about life unbelievably alone, and you're a famous musician on top of that, and fame is very isolating in and of itself. And he just kind of doesn't have anybody except apparently this kid who just keeps showing up and keeps wanting to spend time with him. Yeah. And at first it's like, okay, you're a fan of mine, that's really sweet. But then Che winds up really, showing that it's not just the fame thing. And it may be, it may be that he's also kind of, it's a little bit of the fame thing, and that Che doesn't really know Kim, didn't even know he was, Mafia Kim, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't really know him, which they carried through all the way through the finale, because Che still doesn't get to see Kim kick a whole lot of ass in that bar.
That's true.
The first time.
That was a. Yeah, Kim had me discovering some things about myself. That was very attractive.
Yeah. Oh man, angry Kim was not expecting the level of ferocity to come out of that man.
And the level of competence.
Yeah. Like, oh, okay. And Che has seen exactly none of that. So even though he knows going into like season 2, he knows intellectually, right, that Kim is part of the mafia. He has, he might, even if he's only seen the bodies on the floor and knows that Kim put them there, he still hasn't really seen Kim yet, which is another reason why I feel like we got Act 1 with them. And we'll finally get to see that in season 2, which is going to be so interesting. And I am so excited for it. And I would argue that Che didn't really get to see Kim until like the last scene that we saw with them, with Kim performing the song that he wrote in return to Che, which was just devastating. And then having it be like the song, which we talked about this in the test stream last week about how, you know, that main song that they in the second half of the season they kept using for KinnPorsche moments. And I was like, this doesn't entirely fit KinnPorsche though. This is more of a Kim Che thing. And then the finale happens and I was like, see? I was really, really thinking of you as I was watching that for the first time. I was like, I just fucking told it. And of course I couldn't say it out loud during the reaction, but over here like, Jeanet and I were just talking about this. Yeah. I'm very excited about where Kim Che can go.
Spent too much time fangirling over Kim. I suppose we should get into episode 14.
Well, we kind of touched on episode 14, especially as Kim Che is concerned. But okay, all right. Because I obviously haven't seen your reaction yet.
No one has. I haven't posted it yet.
Yeah, no one has. So at least give us a bit of a teaser in terms of your reaction. Were you as whole ass convinced that Vegas was dead as I was?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah!
100%.
Yeah!
I was, like, even up until the end. Yeah, let me just spoil it. Please go still watch my reaction. Anyway. But, like, I was, at one point, I was like, please tell me, because I think we see Porsche telling Ken, oh no, you know, Pete says it's going well with Vegas, and I was like, please tell me that this is not Pete hallucinating, because that's how far gone he is.
Oh, that would have been dark.
I mean, I was just like, I don't know where the limits are with this show anymore.
Oh, that would have been so dark. That would have been really good, but so fucking dark. I just realized that they clowned me twice about Vegas, because it got to a point where I was like, okay, they're not redeeming Vegas, and then they redeemed Vegas, and as they were clearly redeeming Vegas, I was like, okay, so now they're not gonna kill Vegas, right? And then they were like, no. I was like, what? But what? And then, of course, they were just clowning me, and they didn't actually kill Vegas, which everybody in the entire, like, fucking fandom, they are so mad at the Vegas fake out. I am mad. I'm still mad. I cannot believe they did that to me. Everybody. Like.
Yeah, I was mad at myself for how emotional I was feeling. I was like,
I was so stunned I didn't get that emotional.
Man at the start.
I was so surprised that I couldn't even really, like, I'm pretty sure I had to pause immediately after that scene before they moved on, because, like, hello processing, but I don't think I got that emotional. I was like too stunned. It's like, because I legitimately thought, I was like, okay, they're redeeming him, they're not gonna kill him. And then they really made me think. And I think I said this in the reaction, and then I went back on my own rule with shows like this, which is unless you see a fully dead, cold, not breathing, totally corpseified body, that character is not technically dead. They can totally come back. Unless you get eyes on it, who knows, right? And I totally just blanked on that. Like, we see him, he gets shot real bad.
Yeah,
and
that's why I wasn't doubting it.
Yeah, he is on the ground. He's been shot several times at this point, and he's like laying there. But did we get an actual, you know, close up, we see him stop breathing type thing? Sort of, but not really, not enough. And I have seen enough shows like this, and also just general, you know, mystery plot twisty things where characters come back, that I have that rule, man, and they made me forget that freaking rule. I even called Porsche's mom being alive right before it happened, because I was like, we ain't never seen her body. Have we seen a body? I haven't seen a body. Porsche's mom's totally alive as far as we know. And then that wound up happening.
Yeah.
Didn't get that with
No.
Vegas though. What did you think about what do you think about Porsche's mom? She was the last shot of the season. What do you think about Porsche's mom? Wow.
Oh, it's difficult because, as I mentioned, I was on a time crunch, so I was just like, okay, we're accepting this. It's fine. Moving along.
Okay, all right. Porsche's mom. Clothes up on her face. That's fine. That's cool. I can go to work now. Yeah.
But I was kind of in two minds because I'm like, this is a lot to be giving us right at the end of a season where we can barely like deal with it. And then like the close up of her face, I'm like, is she smiling? Is she confused? Is she frustrated? What's going on?
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure where it was, like where her memory was at.
I've heard an excellent theory because I was of the same thing. I was like, it looks like she gets it, but she doesn't. She's there, but she's not. And I was like, I mean, props to that actress as well, because that kind of ambiguity is extremely difficult, and she did it super well. I was like, oh my God. But no, I have heard a theory that I'm like 100% down with, that the mom is faking it. She's faking her amnesia. She actually remembers everything, but she's been having to play a role for Colin this whole time.
Yeah.
And she cannot let it go yet. And I was like, that has to be it. That has to be it. Right?
I mean, that would make sense for me because, like, honestly, it is a bit abrupt to be like, oh, here's a character that, you know, seems to have forgotten everything, and him and Porsche are just like, oh, you know, just accept us as being your children.
Yeah.
Type thing.
You're like, oh, and like, just it makes sense.
Also, we do have.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. No, like it does also, we do have that moment where Gunn was gonna say something and was promptly shot by Korn, and we're like, what were you gonna say?
Yeah.
So
which I believe is why we haven't seen Porsche remember everything yet. I could have sworn he was gonna do that by the end of the episode.
I expected it as well.
Yeah, but he didn't, and that's probably why. And it's just a nice little mystery that they've left us with, but it makes sense from the way that they did it, from a narrative point of view, operating on the idea that she remembers everything, but she's having to behave otherwise, makes everything they did about that make so much sense. So far, that is definitely my favorite theory.
I would agree with that. And also, it's possible that she maybe actually didn't remember at the start, which is when she was diagnosed. And then she did kind of end up getting it back.
That's true.
And just decided not to tell
That's
anyone.
true. Her memory, and she's been hiding the fact that she's gotten her memories back over time. And that's what she's been hiding, as opposed to she always had them. They could have been wiped and then she get them. That's also true, yeah. But like some degree of she remembers things, but she's having to act like she doesn't, even when she's just alone with Porsche and Che, because God knows what her life has been like these past many years with only this guy knowing you're alive.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's sorry. It's difficult as well for me because I so badly want to trust Korn, because the actor is really good at making you want to like him. And then you have moments where he's like, oh, you know, I worked so hard to get you and your mother together. And I'm like, where? When? How? Like, if Porsche hadn't accidentally followed Gunn up those stairs, he still wouldn't have known. So you're clearly lying. So what else are you lying about? And why would you lie about something so easily disproven?
The actor, the casting of that guy was like half the battle for this entire character, because he's so good at seeming heartfelt, genuine. And so really like the gaslighting with this guy is so real. Because you're like, no, I know with my own faculties and from the things that I know that you are not a good person and you're fucking with all these people for your own ends and trying to cover up whatever the fuck that like you did, and you are this type of person. And then he comes in and he's like, no, I'm not. What are you talking? No. Like, he's so good at like behaving in this whole other reality, which is really like, gaslighting isn't just lying. It's fundamentally making somebody believe a reality that is not true.
And doubt themselves.
Yeah, and to doubt their own perceptions of reality. And like, he really, I mean, he is able to absolutely do that to a terrifying degree.
Yeah.
It's really impressive.
What scares me as well is the fact that, like, for example, one moment where he had me so convinced where I was like, no, but he has to be telling the truth because why else? You know, and I think he does that a lot, is the moment where Porsche has the gun pointed at him while he's sitting at the piano, and then Porsche starts having the flashbacks and he's like, Porsche, are you okay? And I'm just sitting there thinking like, damn, he can't be that bad if like instead of disarming this kid, he is checking on him. You know,
I thought at the end of 13, when, you know, he kind of like drops that bomb of like, it was like, why would I do that? Like, she's my sister, and drop that whole thing. I thought at first, especially with how the beginning of episode 14 plays out, I was like, okay, so the show is doing that cheap thing where they dangle, oh, Ken and Porsche are related, and then they resolve it in the first, like, you know, 3 minutes of the next episode because it was just kind of a cheap cliffhanger. But now I actually don't believe that. I feel like that was a very deliberate choice on his part to not mention the foster aspect of his relation to Porsche's mom, right? Not mention that, but instead have Porsche thinking what he's thinking because, you know, he's like, I have a gun to my head. I need to unsettle him so that I can buy some more time. So I'm going to be like, oh, but we were siblings. We were brother and sister. You can connect the dots, right? That means, doesn't that mean you're related to Ken? I think it does. I'm gonna let you, you know, freak out about that so that I can get the upper hand here. And I was like, okay, show, you proved me wrong. I was so dead certain that that was just a cheap, you know, cliffhanger going into the finale, when actually it was a very deliberate tactic from that goddamn man.
And it's frustrating as well. Like, I was, I remember, I think in like episode 6 or 7 already, maybe even earlier, but let's just say around about that time, I was like, please let it not be an incest plotline. Please let it not be an incest
because like even with cousins, it's like, really? You could have just not done this and it wouldn't have all. Yeah, I think I accidentally got spoiled that it wasn't actually going to be a thing, which is why I think, you know, the fandom didn't freak out to the degree that it could have, was because you had all the book people being like, it's not actually a thing. And I accidentally got caught of that spoiler, and I was like, oh, all right. So then it was just a cheap cliffhanger, and then it wasn't. And then it fucking wasn't.
Okay, any other thoughts on episode 14? Because I feel like there's a lot.
Yeah, there's just so fucking much. I got clowned. I was so dead ass certain that Ken and Porsche were going to get engaged on that damn boat. I even thought there was a fucking ring at the bottom of the cocktail that Ken made for Porsche. Okay, I'm a clown.
Oh, wow, okay.
I'm a clown. Because I saw something at the bottom of that glass, damn it. And I was like, they're getting engaged. They walk off to they're getting engaged. And then they didn't.
Yeah, I did also. I thought there, where they had the city at the, like, it was night and they had the city in the back. Right at the end of the episode as well, I was like, they're getting engaged. I think it was either then or it was also on the boat. I'm not sure. But I was like, I think there was Porsche had obviously like a white shirt underneath the blazer, and I caught sight of it, and I thought it was the like top of a like a box, you know. But yeah, no, I have to say I'm kind of relieved they didn't go with that though.
Right? Like, as excited as I was, like, in the moment, because it was like, I think there was maybe like another point in a previous episode where I thought that Kinn was about to, yeah, like a couple episodes, I thought that Kinn was about to like propose. And like on the one hand, like if you had to actually ask me what I thought was like best for the story, I would be like, can we not do the getting married thing? Can we not do the wedding thing and all that jazz? I think like it's a bit too soon. Like season 2, maybe probably by the end of that, definitely. Sure, but like a little bit early, but I was prepared to, treat that like the fun over the top aspect of the show. Because the show is very over the top, and I was about to be like, sure, that's fine. Have them get engaged by the end of this. Like, yeah, I was ready to go with it. But and then I got clowned both times, so now it looks like I'm like really gunning for them to get engaged and get married. It looks like I'm like really anticipating that moment when I just clowned myself twice. That's all. I totally misread.
Yeah.
I think other people thought that Kinn was about to propose in like when they actually had the conversation of, let's start over at the place where they first met. I think a lot of people thought that like they were like, is Kinn about to pop the question?
I didn't even think that at that
really?
point. I was just like, oh, the cliche of let's start over. Okay.
I was like, there's only literally in all of reality, there's only one reason you go back to the place you first met, and that's to get engaged. And then he was like, let's start over. And I was like, or that. People also do that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much to discuss. And now that we're here, I'm like, what was all the things that I wanted to say?
Yeah. You're like, real quick, before we go, because I'm sure your battery is like on its last legs. Top 3 favorite characters.
Ooh. Okay, Kim.
Kim, really?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
I really like the hidden depths. I wish there was more, but I feel like everyone else kind of got a complete arc, and you kind of know where you're standing with all of them. And I feel like Kim hasn't had that yet. Cancun, because like he was there with me with the frustration about Pete, and I appreciate that.
Yes.
And then Pete. Okay, if we could take a moment to just talk about the acting when he was confused about where he stood with Vegas after he got out.
Yeah.
That was everything.
That was brutal.
I really enjoyed that.
That was so... I mean, he surprised like everybody with his builds is the actor's name, I believe. He surprised me, and I feel like he surprised a lot of people with not just being, cute, fun Pete at the beginning, which was part of the surprise of the character, is that, you see him being one way for the first half and that way for the second half, but also just the versatility in that actor was really, really impressive. He really took that as far as Bible did with Vegas. They were really, really well matched in terms of acting ability. And yeah, it was so brutal in such a way that I was not expecting from, the guy who plays Pete.
Yeah.
Right? No.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I kind of knew that there was going to be more to him. Just, I don't know where I saw someone comment, but they were like, it's clear that he doesn't, he's not just this happy-go-lucky guy, because he is fully aware of the situation that he's in. He's not blind to the danger that he is in, and the fact that he's in a place where he's okay with murdering people. So obviously there's more to him. But I I love that there was so much more to him, and what surprised me, and I don't know if maybe I'm giving the show too much credit, but I'd like to think that this was at least in some ways intentional on the writers' part, is right after I watched that episode where um, Pete reveals about his father and like kind of bonds with Vegas about the abusive situation. A total unrelated video where someone was discussing, oh, people who are in abusive relationships tend to um, portray themselves as happier because that's the way that they stay safe, is they pretend that they're okay. And suddenly hearing that, Pete's character made so much more sense to me, because it was like, that's why he's always happy go lucky. It's not because he doesn't have pain, it's because he's learned to hide that pain so well. And then, like, all of that just, accumulated with the scene in the bathtub where Porsche's asking him, like, what happened and everything, and he's like smiling, but
Oh yeah, that
clearly
was one
in
of the
so
most,
much pain.
God, that scene may even be more painful to me than when, Pete is sitting alone with the soup and everything and
With the soup.
processing everything. His scene with Porsche may even either equals or may even top that in terms of just
Mm,
gut-wrenchingly painful moments. But going back, Pete, they also played that, Pete pretending like he's more okay than he
mm,
really is. He even
mm,
got me, when he talks about, his dad, and he tells Vegas about his dad, and he seems to understand that, what happened to them wasn't because they suck, it's because their dads suck, right? And
mm,
I was like, cool, you got that. You understand that. For me, him seeming to understand that, I put him a little bit, farther down the healthy road
mm.
than he actually was, because I was like, okay, he gets that. That's a big step. That's a big thing.
Yeah, that is.
So, he's clearly, in a better position of, and that wasn't entirely true. And also there's the fact that you can intellectually know something without really wholeheartedly living it and believing it. So just
Mm,
because you can understand why you were abused and where your abuser was coming from, like, you can know that, but that doesn't mean that you've really done the work to get that far down the road in terms of having healed from that, rather than
mm,
still being, in a sense, victimized by that trauma, which Pete so clearly was after that
yeah.
scene. And for a little while it didn't make sense. I was like, but he said that, and he was like, oh no. Now it took me a second to really understand, because that's actually that's one of the deepest bits of character work that they've done so far in the show.
Mm, it
Was
is.
that one specific aspect about Pete. Yeah. um
On a similar level for me, going back to like episode 14, when Vegas took his father's side, I was so frustrated when, like, during the final shootout. I
mm,
was so frustrated. And then once his father died, it all made a bit more sense to me. And I mean, maybe I'm just reading this wrong. That's also always a possibility. I tend to overanalyze. Um, but it was interesting to me where I think he, like, he was maybe at that place where he, again, intellectually knew that this wasn't the right choice, but he didn't feel like he could get out. And also, there was that like sunk cost fallacy thing going on where, like, no, but like I can't turn back now. It's too late for me, and then the still being attached to his abuser. And it was so interesting to me. I think what really brought it home for me was when his father died and he was so angry. Like, from a logical standpoint, you'd expect relief because this man has been torturing him for forever, but you know that no, it's like it's anger because you're so attached to them, you don't have an identity without them. And then the step after that where he almost takes his own life makes so much sense.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, they really pulled a 1-2 punch, because, you know, for a second you think Kinn's dad is dead, and I was like, oh man, you know, I feel you, Kinn. When a complicated patriarch dies, I have literally been in that situation. I know that feeling. That's not a great feeling. And then of course the fucker turns out to be alive, but but then, you know, Vegas's dad dies, and I was like, oh god, like all those same things, but like times 1,000 with Vegas. And like, it was so, they really did justice to that type of response. And you were exactly right in all the reasons about why Vegas behaved the way he did. I think when he was going into the big showdown, I think all he truly believed himself capable of was like not killing Pete. And so he didn't even try to fight anything of being like, well, yeah, I'm going to try to kill, you know, Kinn and Porsche and all the other bodyguards, everybody else around here, because that's what Dad says to do. I don't really have a choice in the matter. If I tried to go against it, he'd probably just shoot me in the head. So yeah, I'll do this. And, you know, he's still, of course, harboring all of these resentments for Kinn and just wants to hurt Kinn, because in his mind, Kinn is just the more successful, trauma-free version of him that he's never been able to measure up to, right? So yeah, he's still got no problem in that avenue, but he's like, but I will not hurt Pete. And when he said that, I believed him. Absolutely. Even though it probably should have been more of a 50-50, I don't know thing, but I was like, no, considering that I ultimately believe in the progress that Vegas has made, I believed that he wasn't going to hurt Pete. And by then I was whole hog into their redeeming Vegas, as in like redeeming Vegas.
As in he's not gonna die.
Yeah, yeah, as in he's not gonna die. He's gonna go and have an actually like healthy relationship, you know, with Pete once they can keep working on all of their trauma shit. Right? Yeah?
But
yeah.
But like for me, there was a moment. I'm spoiling my entire reaction here, but it's fun. There was a moment where I was so convinced that Vegas was gonna shoot Corn, and then we were gonna have the like minor and main family like at each other's throats again, just new generation. And I'm so glad they didn't go with that, because I did not have like I did not have the patience.
On one hand, I feel like that had some potential, at least for like maybe not a full season, maybe for like half a season. I feel like it would have been interesting to see Kinn and Vegas at the head of their families now and what they choose to do with that going forward. I thought, as kind of jazzed as I am about the whole like Porsche head of the minor family thing, I feel like they, narratively speaking, they pulled that out of nowhere. So it felt really convenient. Where it's like, by the way, I can name anybody that I want to be the minor thing. So here, I'm just gonna name Port. They hadn't laid the groundwork for that in previous episodes. So on one hand, I'm like, I'm down for this. You didn't work it into the story at all, and you're pulling it completely out of your ass at the last second, but I'm still down with it.
I actually was okay with it, because I feel like it's part of a bigger plan that Korn has.
Oh, sure. That's definitely one of the reasons why I'm with it as well.
So that's why I was like, you know, I don't mind this coming out of nowhere, because it feels like he is just throwing things at them wherever he goes. So it's not surprising that this would just happen to be another thing. The fact that they're not finding it suspicious, that I'm questioning.
True. Well, I also think that they're very mind-fucked at the moment in terms of what to believe, what Porsche wants to believe about Kinn's dad and what Kinn wants to believe about his own dad. Which, the way Kinn has been taking all this has been super interesting. and I hope that they touch on that more in season 2, because it was, again, one of those more subtle, implicit things of, he's obviously still attached to his dad, he hates this life, but he still loves his dad, despite his dad, you know, being his dad, and he's trying to navigate his dad and Porsche in a very kind of diplomatic way, and that puts him in a real tight spot. And I think he's still gonna be in that tight spot, and I'm just super curious to see that play out. Somebody already mentioned, because people have sharp eyes, somebody already mentioned, you know, at the end of episode 1 or whatever, the whole chess game that Kinn's dad was playing, where he basically had, it was the whole like king and queen emphasis, and you can very much, I mean, say that that goes back all the way to the end of the season, where you have Kinn as the king of the major family and Porsche as his queen of the minor family, and that this was in some way all an end game for Kinn's dad. To what end, we don't really know, but on hindsight, I much more get the sense of we're all still caught up in this guy's net and in his web of whatever he's doing. Like... But at the time, I was a lot more reacting to it. I was a lot more like, okay, so he is kind of good. No, he's kind of bad. No, he's kind of gray. I don't know. I kind of believe him about this, but I don't believe him about that. You know what? Maybe he is just turned out to be a good person after all. It's all Vegas's dad's fault. Let's put everything on Vegas's dad, right? And then after thinking about it, I'm like, no, I think we're all still screwed.
Yeah. No, it genuinely feels like that. It feels like that. And what's interesting to me is someone mentioned about his pet fish, which sounds so strange.
Yeah, there was something about the beta fish that he had.
Yeah, about them like killing each other if they're in the same pond.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the season, they were separated out into two different, things. And I'm like, so are the two fishes, the previous two fishes, do they symbolize corn and gun? And hopefully that's like the two that are separated out are either Vegas and Kinn or Vegas and Porsche, and that's why things will go more peacefully. Or is there just so much more than we are seeing right now?
I think there is a lot of stuff that we still don't know. I've also been back and forth on just kind of understanding how much of the books the season was going to cover, and how many books there were. I thought there was only 1, but there's 2. So I've been kind of going back and forth of like what to expect this season to cover, and like whether we were going to get a whole bunch of definite answers, and the end of this season was going to be like the end of the book, which is the end of the original source material, and then any type of season 2 would basically be fan fiction, going off of that. So I've been having to adjust my expectations about what the hell they were trying to say in the first place. But now that I know that there is actually more than one book, and we are getting a season 2, now it's like, well, okay, now we just have to wait and see what they pick up and what they explain before we can really come down on, well, that's a thread that they just dropped and ignored and forgot about, because that could come back later now. Yeah. So I've been having to adjust on that end as well.
But so I'm scared my camera's gonna go. So I want to hear from you. What was your thoughts on the post-credit scene?
Okay, so I already explained this to you, even though you haven't seen it yet. So like, I didn't know about the post-credit scene, and so I paused once the credits started, and I said whatever the hell I said in trying to wrap my head around it. I did the outro, I ended the video, I stopped recording, and then Minerva on the Gaywatch Discord in the KinnPorsche chat was like, Brittany, by the way, there's a post-credit scene. You know that, right? And I was like, wait, what? What are you talking about? And I ran back and I started recording, and then I hit play and I reacted to it. And it just so happened to be the scene that I had been previously moaning about that they hadn't included. Which is, Vegas and Pete in the hospital. I spent, a good few minutes being like, where's the scene with Vegas and Pete at the hospital? Why didn't we get that? All this stuff. And then it happened. And so I was just kind of over the moon that it even existed. And it was obviously very needed because it really put a nice ending feeling on this part of Pete and Vegas's story. That Vegas has now grown to where he no longer feels the desire to cause violence and torture, and especially towards the people that he loves and he cares about, right? So he is now I am no longer that person. He literally says it, you're not my pet anymore. You are the most important person in my life, right? I have turned this leaf over. It's obviously not going to be that easy because neither one of them are done dealing with these things that are haunting them. But it's been a major progress, and we're now to a whole new frontier with them. And I loved that we got it. Damn it. It almost feels like I manifested it because I was like, where's the scene? And then they gave it to me.
Yeah, I literally had something of a similar experience, just barring an 8-hour workday in between.
Yeah. Oh, so no, that's right.
I ended it and I was like, okay, but I really feel like they couldn't have given us more with Vegas and Pete.
Yeah.
And I was freaking bargaining on Vegas, not saying that Pete is not a pet, and they didn't even give me that. And then I went to work.
Oh my god.
And then I saw you commenting, and you were like, and that after credit scene ended me, and I'm like, there's an after credit scene.
So really, we all have to thank Minerva. Because if it wasn't for Minerva, I wouldn't have known, and I would have just fully stopped recording, and I would have had to, watch it without reacting to it, right? And then you wouldn't have known as a result of that. Yeah, yes. Thank you, Minerva. You saved both of our asses.
It was brilliant. Okay. No, but before I go, I probably need to go, Shin. Who were your 3 favorite characters? You didn't say.
Right. So I'm super boring, and actually I've been really mean to myself by making it top 3 instead of a top 4. Because even though there are so many characters who I absolutely love and adore, because obviously we all stand Tin-kun. Hello. He is a king. He is a 10. 11 out of 10. He's amazing, right? But in terms of favorite characters, I usually tend to get pretty boring in that, we're all supposed to love the protagonists, and but side characters get so much love as well. It's like the Harry Potter syndrome, right? Everyone's favorite character is someone other than Harry Potter, right? But Harry's actually he's in my top 5 favorite characters, man. I tend to love the protagonists that we are supposed to love. That's one of the reasons why I wind up liking a show, is because they do such a good job with the protagonists. All of that is to say that 2 of those spaces do belong to KinnPorsche.
Okay.
I love them obviously together, but just individually as well. They're so great and so different and compelling, and they're played so well, and they go to such interesting, amazing, great places. I'm curious to see whether they take that in terms of a season 2, whether if they can keep them that interesting as a couple. They were kind of verging into kind of well-worn sort of now they're together, there's nothing really happening territory in a couple of places. And it's yes, we obviously love to see them happy, but there was like not back to back, but there were like 2 like whole episodes where it was just nothing but sunshine and rainbows. And as much as you want that, I want that for them like after the show's over. Like I want to see how they have to fight tooth and nail to get this thing and then keep this thing through the whole deal. But no, I love them. I can't choose really a favorite between the 2, so I don't have like a clear favorite character. But I do love me Kinn and Porsche. I'm hating myself for saying 3 instead of 4 though, because now this is making me choose between Vegas and Pete.
Okay, well, I had Vegas as an honorary mention,
right?
so you can have.
And I'm like, I think, because I am so, now that I'm like, okay, they really were planning on going from Vegas the Torturer to Vegas the Redeemed, right? And I am such a hardcore believer in a good redemption story. I believe you can redeem well any character, because all that really matters is that they reach a point of feeling genuine remorse for what they've done. And then you can continue the redemption from there. And because we live in a real world where like neo-Nazis have woken up and redeemed themselves, like I just believe in the never-ending power of redemption. And as long as you start to feel remorse and then go on to do better and be better and make amends if that's even possible, like I think you can do anything. And Vegas is such a good example of that, even though he should have been given more time to go on that journey. It's just he hits such a sweet spot for me. But then again, so does Pete at being, you know, the smiley happy but not really one, and who's experiencing so much pain, and there's so many things psychologically interesting with him and why he chooses to stay by Vegas's side even when he gets the real, you know, chance to leave, why he never really gave up on Vegas, and what they like create in this weird dynamic that they have together. Pete is just such a fucking phenomenal character who has just as many dimensions as Vegas does, even if they're not all the same. So, like, who the heck do I choose? Jeanet, who am I supposed to choose? But I suppose, if I have to have an honorary, you know, 4th favorite, I have to flip it from one you did. I guess I have to make Vegas my 3rd. And then, but Pete is, like, right there at the 4th, because of course he is. But I suppose, I'm real shit at coming up with top favorites because I just agonize and agonize and agonize.
And do you have a moment of like my final question? I don't know how many other things you want to say. So, what moments in the show would you say defines the show the best?
Oh shit. Okay, so we're ending on something easy then. Thanks, Jeanet. God, what is like so quintessentially like KinnPorsche the show, right? KinnPorsche the series. Shit.
I'm scared now. I think you're gonna give a really good answer, and my answer is gonna be crap.
Oh God. Like, what could really define KinnPorsche as a series? That's so damn difficult, Jeanet.
I'm sorry. Okay. Never mind.
No. You give yours, and that'll give me an opportunity to keep thinking about mine.
Okay, so for me, what sums it up is in the first episode when Kinn is on the deck. Porsche's like, there's water behind me, there's a mafia boss in front of me, what do I do?
You jump off the boat.
And scream.
Yeah, and scream on the way down. That's good. That's good.
like his reaction, I think, will stay in my mind forever.
Yeah.
Because it was just like,
And like,
and then he just went.
and then he just, yeah. And then like we're all Kin in that moment. Just okay. On the opposite side of the spectrum, I would have to say on first, at first glance, the first thing that comes to mind is just something that could really define kind of the show as a whole. I think is actually the end of episode 7 in the bathroom with the hands. I think that whole scene really captures so much of what they were doing with not just Kin and Porsche, but with Vegas and Pete, and even with Kim and Che, even though obviously Kim and Che have the most lighthearted version of the deal. I think the things that go on in that scene and why it happens and how it plays out and how it ends up, which is with an incredible, very tight hug of devotion as Kin is like crying, really encapsulates a lot of their goals of the series from a character standpoint. I think that really kind of hits the nail on the head. It's like a nice, good little micro example of what they were doing on a much larger scale across 3 different relationships, right? Yeah, that's real close in terms of if we're gonna talk about the love scenes, in terms of that's real close to being like my favorite one of the ones that we got. And it's real difficult because they're all amazing for a variety of different reasons. But that's real close to actually being like my favorite, is because of exactly everything that happens in that scene. And it's actually quite a lot. I'm very excited to get to the bottom of that just for that reason, because there's so much.
Yeah. I mean, because generally I think if anyone were to watch my reactions, it's very clear that I am uncomfortable when I'm watching the sex scenes. It is what it is. But honestly, the character growth that goes into so many of those scenes makes you want to watch it, because otherwise you're genuinely missing essential moments in their character development, especially with Pete and Vegas. Their first, like, that was intense in a very much non-sexual way.
Yes.
That was very, like, just so many intense emotions and just very intriguing. And again, episode 4, that first one that we've discussed, but just like the gymnastics that both of them were doing in their own minds, trying to figure out where they stood with each other, like that was in the long run very essential to the rest of how their story developed.
Oh yeah. You really can't take out, and they really do a good job of earning and justifying the necessity for those scenes, which is admirable considering that they're, fun, over the top, soapy, silly nature. If they had really wanted to, they could have just thrown in a bunch of pointless ones and have really cashed in on, that whole aspect of getting people to watch, right? And not that they obviously, there's so much fan service in this show, right? That I can totally understand someone just seeing like a little clip, a little non-explicit, clip of some of the fan servicey elements, and then just writing off the whole show as just being like, oh, okay, it's just hot, shirtless guys who are getting it on with each other, and it's just, pointless, shallow fun. But they really didn't rest on their laurels. They really earned every single one, and every single one is so necessary, and every single one is a conversation, a whole conversation. And I mean,
my battery is about to go.
Okay.
I see it blinking.
Okay, I'm happy that we were able to get another half hour out of it. That's a red letter day. So, oh great. I am So sorry, chat, if you've been having to deal with those bots in the chat for long. Can I ban? I'm just gonna, hide.
You should be able to,
I'm gonna hide that person. You shouldn't see that. Yeah, there we go. I'm so sorry. I did not see that until just now, chat. My apologies. But no, okay, so your battery is about to die. Thank you so much for this long and glorious and wonderful conversation and all of the technical crap that had to go into making it happen.
I am so sorry that we couldn't continue because I literally could spend another 3 hours talking about this.
I know, right? I feel like we need, you know what we need to do? We need to do another live stream like a little bit ahead of season 2. So it's like, because by then it'll be like, okay, we've all had plenty of time with season 1. Because like now it's all still very, very new. We've all had plenty of time to form our opinions and get our theories together and all of that jazz, and some kind of live stream of like, okay, let's sit down and talk about the first season as like a refresher course to get ready for season 2.
I would be up for that.
Yeah. And then of course, you know, basically like I feel like any excuse in our schedules to kind of probably get together, talk about KinnPorsche or kind of anything else, really, anything else related to either one of our channels, because we have quite a bit of overlap.
Yeah, we have a decent amount of overlap.
We'll find some excuse between now and that next KinnPorsche live stream to get together.
Maybe
and talk,
Ultimate
definitely.
Note.
Oh yeah, maybe Ultimate Note. Oh yeah, especially like if that wins. And that winds up being like a reaction whenever I get to it. I'm gonna watch it eventually, regardless. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much, chat, for contending with those bots. I'm so sorry I could only fix it right there at the end there. But thank you so much, everybody, and obviously especially Jeanet for being here. I hope you had as much fun as I did.
I did.
Yeah.
I really did.
This was fantastic. This far surpassed just my wildest dreams. We did not get to like going into any stills or anything, but that's fine because I'm gonna do plenty of that in the love scene analysis videos. So that's totally fine. Do you have anything coming up, Jeanet, real quick that you want to plug? How about this? When does your episode 14 reaction drop? When is that gonna land, do you think?
Tomorrow at 4 p.m. my time, so 5 hours before this live, like 5 hours before this live was scheduled for today.
So around, that would be 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time?
Yeah, I think so.
And you're also on, if anybody wants to figure it out, you're in South Africa. So
yes. So it's 2 GMT plus 2 hours.
Okay. Yeah, fantastic. Wonderful. Go follow Jeanet on Twitter. I've got her Twitter handle under her name there the whole time. You've been staring at it, probably. And you guys know all the stuff that's coming up on my channel. I've already told you about it. So we will see you guys real soon. We're gonna have to figure out a way, Jeanet and I, to do this again real soon. We'll come up with some excuse. And thank you so much for everybody for joining us. I hope you had as much fun as I did. I hope you got something out of it. I will be going back and at the very least skimming the comments to see what you guys have to say. We could just do a whole ass live stream where we just take questions from people and we just like literally let chat lead the discussion.
I would be there for that.
That would be a cool thing to do. But yes, thank you so much for tuning in. It was delightful, wonderful, amazing, awesome. Please take care of yourselves, and we will see you guys the next time we find an excuse to have a live stream.
And thank you to the amazing host.
Oh, thank you, Jeanet. Well, now you've embarrassed me. I'm just gonna go ahead and end the stream now. Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.